here we are. So I'm still at my writing retreat, and I will be back to writing my suspense novel, my next suspense novel, very soon. But right now, I want to dive into the first 3 witnesses on the state's case of Lori versus the state of Arizona. Lori Vallow, and I don't like calling her Daybell. She wants to be called Daybell. I'm not giving that to her. I will call her Lori Vallow, and here's the reason why. Not that she deserves to have Charles's name, but because she is accused of offing him and conspiring to do so. I think that it brings Charles, the victim, into focus. It brings him back. And it's even more damning, in my opinion. She has his name, and she killed him. She made sure it happened. So that's why I call her Lori Vallow, not just Daybell. If you're new here, I am Annette Lyon, USA Today best-selling author of the suspense novel Just One More and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also award-winning author, former editor, whole bunch of other things. Here we discuss true crime often, but not always, where it intersects with religion. And then we have chocolate on the side because you gotta have something sweet in the middle of all the bitter. I have opinions. I rant. That's what we do here. We respect all faith traditions and those with no faith traditions. That includes my faith as well. And a quick reminder to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and helps other people find this kind of content who would be interested in it. Ready? Let's go. So the state's first witness was Irvinf Wierzbicki. I don't know if I said that correctly. A lot of the police officers refer to him as just Wiz, probably because it's just easier to say, but he was the responding officer to the scene. He says he's found Charles on his back, arms out to his sides, blood pooling in the collar area, which would explain, gravity going this direction while the heart is still beating, which wasn't for very long. They also showed body cam footage to the gallery and to the jury, but the camera did not show it. They kept the view on the officer, which I appreciate. We don't need those images in our heads. So he kind of talked about updating other officers, waiting for fire to show up so they could assess and potentially declare Charles dead, finding Alex's weapon. He said he found no wallet on Charles, but that wasn't necessarily unusual. He didn't know the situation. He didn't know if Charles lived there, in which case he may or may not have a wallet in his pocket at that point. He didn't know what he was responding to. So when Lori does her cross of Officer Wiz, she not doing a great job. Well, she thinks she is. She thinks she's doing a good job. She even asks him if is qualified to give a psychological evaluation, which is like, of course he's not. Why are you asking this question? You're wasting our time. She asks things like, does everybody act the same after trauma? Which, of course, the answer is no. But the thing is that police officers, firefighters, paramedics, all of these people are professionals trained to handle traumatic situations so they don't lose their cool. If they get too emotional in the moment, they will not be able to do their jobs properly. So, of course, the police officers and the firefighters, anyone present is going to be calm. They have to be. But the fact that she was calm and just, yeah, whatever, and just lighthearted to the point of like, oh, sorry, neighbors, I guess they're not going to invite me to their pool party. Like, they're like, okay, that's not normal. She didn't ask how her husband was or what had happened. She didn't even ask if her brother was okay after being told that he was hit in the head. Like she was like, oh, okay.
What?
Weird. So no wonder they wanted to bring her down to the station for questioning. She also asks if he has any experience with crime scene investigation. And he says, well, just my 20 years as a police officer. It's just things where I'm like, there are a lot of witnesses that have these awesome comebacks. And it's largely thanks to the fact that she asks us such stupid questions and they can just give her like the obvious answer. And and then she continues asking questions that a responding officer isn't going to know. This is like crime scene techs do this stuff. Forensic analysts do this stuff. It's not his job as the responding officer. He secures the scene, essentially. So she's asking things like the direction of a projectile, if a person is standing over where, if the person died and is lying over here, and where. The stuff that would go to ballistics and other specialists. What's the protocol that EMTs have when they arrive on scene? And he goes, I'm a police officer. I'm not an EMT. I don't know the protocol. It's just, oh, Lori, come on. And she pushes really hard on, how did you know there were 2 gunshot wounds? Did you see 2 holes? And did you do this? Did it? It's just really odd that she just keeps like just handpecking these weird questions that I'm like, what does this matter? How is this going to help you? It's not making you look good. More objections, and they're almost always sustained from the state because Lori does not know what she's doing. On this witness and many, many others, it seems like she is obsessed with how often witnesses talk to each other. Like, how many times did you call this person? How many times did you do this? And with here, she says, how many times did you talk to this particular detective about me and my case? And he's like, I have no idea. It wouldn't have been much. It was probably just in passing or something. I don't remember. She was like, oh, well, was it email? Was it a text? Was it a phone call? And he's like, it was, if there was contact, it was very minimal and it didn't matter. This is the state's second witness. This was Officer Krautheim. He is now retired. And I loved how he described the job of a police officer because it kind of put some of Lori's questions in perspective, because she kept asking all these forensic things that are like tested and analyzed after the fact. And he says, oh, that's not what we look at. When you're a responding officer, you take care of things that are while they are burning, bleeding, and blowing up. So when they're actively happening or just happened. And once that's done and other experts show up and you've secured the scene, you hand it over to the other people, whether it's the crime scene techs or if it's the paramedics to revive someone, whatever. But if it's not currently happening or just barely happened, that's not their job. So she challenges him with his phrasing on his report, because he said that he noticed a blood-like substance on the back of Alex's head. Again, there was not much. It was just teeny tiny bit. Which, head wound, high again, gosh, come on. But she says, well, why didn't you? So it wasn't blood then? And he says, okay, so all I can do is report on my observations. I believed it was blood, but I couldn't in the moment like test it and confirm that. So in my report, I said it looked like blood. It was a blood-like substance. And we know now that yes, it was blood. Like that, she should be glad that the cops are being that thorough and accurate and not just making assumptions. Like, come on, woman. Come on. So many objections about things that Alex said, and the judge had to admonish her to ask questions, but not asking for hearsay. She continues, and there are so many times the state could have objected to things and didn't. Again, I believe because they're picking and choosing their battles. They're probably objecting to the more egregious things and letting some of the smaller stuff go. A, so they don't look like bullies, and B, so that there's nothing that can be overturned on appeal, that Lori can't say things weren't fair, whatever. State witness number 3 is a firefighter named Scott Cowden. Now, his testimony spanned 2 days. This was day 1. The state finished up with him on day 1, and then Lori finished her cross on day 2. So we'll talk all about his testimony all together in one lump. He defines the job of firefighter, EMT, and paramedic, explaining that an EMT is like a beginning entry-level position. To be a paramedic requires a whole lot more training, and you're able to do more testing and treatment and all these things. He describes evidence of having done CPR on a person, how oftentimes the clothes have to be lifted up so you can find the right spot. There's going to be a depression in the chest where you've been doing the compressions. And he says because of the gunshot wound in the chest, that if you're doing those compressions, you would have blood spurting out. And there was no blood at the scene, per Officer Wierzbicki's testimony. Essentially, there would be evidence if Alex had actually done CPR, as he claimed he was doing on the 911 call. All right, my ring light just died, so let's see if this lighting works at all. Let's hope so. Alex claimed to have done CPR on the 911 call. There was no evidence that he had. So that seems pretty damning. And yes, he says there's no pulse, no breathing, no signs of life when he arrived. But he had been informed from dispatch that CPR was happening. But he performed CPR after doing his initial assessment. Again, no signs of a depression in the ribs. And when he began the actual CPR, he heard the crack of the cartilage, which means now you're doing CPR. And if Alex was not exactly a small guy, he could have done CPR properly, and he would have made that first crack. So he said that a fellow firefighters cut Charles's shirt around the bullet hole to preserve that evidence before putting on an EKG. EKG was flat. He confirmed he was wearing gloves through all of this, and that the CPR process added more blood to the scene, which made sense. Blood was not circulating until he tried to do all of that, and then they made more blood come out of the body. He said that Charles was clearly deceased, so his death was then called. And he said that there were signs that he died sometime before they ever arrived, including coloring on the body. There was modeling on the body, there was lividity on the body, and we'll get to more specifics on that. On Lori's cross the next morning, she goes really hard into trying to plant doubt that, no, Al really did try to do CPR on Charles. Maybe he just didn't know what he was doing, that it's hard to explain it well over the phone, even though dispatch is trained specifically on how to do this. The fact that Alex had absolutely no blood on him, aside from the little tiny thing on the back of his head, and that Alex wasn't touching the back of his head, which is telling. If you get hurt somewhere, you touch it and feel like how much is it bleeding. It's just kind of an instinctual thing. Even Charles, one of his last things he did was touch his own wound. That's something we do. Alex did not. And Lori's asking Cowden to break down everything he did moment by moment. Keeping in mind, this is 6 years ago. Like, come on. But he basically says, this is our protocol. This is what we do. This is, and then we clean up our stuff. We leave as little as we can to the scene. Also, while trying not to disturb much. Things that would have been left, like the EKG pads that would have been on his body and that kind of thing. He says, would you hesitate to press on a gunshot wound? He's like, no, not at all. Did you check to see whether his heart was stopped first? Yes, we did. And then she's asking all kinds of speculative questions, like, well, would some people hesitate to press on a gunshot wound? Again, trying to imply that Alex might have been hesitant to attempt it. And she goes, well, you don't always get the crack, like at the cartilage when you push on the bones, the rib cage when you do CPR. And he says, if you're doing correctly, yeah, you do. Then we have our first jury question for the firefighter, Cowden. We never hear what it is, though. We have no idea. I don't think we'll ever hear. But those are the first 3 witnesses from the state and Lori's attempt at cross-examining them. Things get really feisty the next day. We hear from another firefighter, retired. He goes into a lot more detail. We hear from the scene agent from Detective Coons. So you'll want to stick around for that. So let me know what you think of all of this. And are you watching? Let me know what you think about the case so far. I don't think the state has proven their case, but they are nowhere near done. They are just laying the foundation. So give me your opinion while you're in the comments. Drop some chocolate emojis or your comfort food of choice. Give us a like and a follow. Please subscribe. I'm really hoping we can hit the 6,000 mark during the trial. That would be a huge goal, a dream. I would really appreciate it. That would be super cool. And until next time, I think I need to go get myself some chocolate. Where is some?